Who are the White South Africans? In 1653, a group of Dutch settlers landed on the tip of southern Africa, and they founded the colony of the Cape of Good Hope. They had peaceful relations with the natives that lived there, people known as the San or Bushmen. These people are not black. Black Africans, known as Bantu, did not arrive until some time later. The Dutch settlers were joined by French, Protestants, known as Huguenots, and Germans. In 1806, in order to counteract Napoleon, the British seized the Cape Colony. They began passing anti-Dutch laws and forbid any language but English. In 1835, the majority of the Dutch, French, and German group of settlers, now calling themselves Boers, marched inland to the unknown continent. They soon reached Zululand, and they attempted to make peace with the Zulu king Dingane. He gave them several tasks, namely to recover cattle that had been stolen by a neighboring kingdom. They did this, and he agreed to provide them with land and signed a treaty recognizing their mastery over an area that had no Zulu settlers. He then invited the white South Africans to return for a ceremonial dance acknowledging the treaty. When the whites arrived, Dingane asked them to leave their guns and swords, knives, weapons outside, as was Zulu custom. Piet Retief, the leader of the Voortrekkers, agreed. Halfway through the ceremony, Dingane stood up and screamed, "Kill the whites! Kill the wizards!" And Piet Retief and his party were rounded up, tortured, and executed by impalement. Dingane then sent his warriors to find Piet Retief's group main area where all the women and children were. They killed over 500 elderly, women, and children. 2 survivors escaped and warned the other groups. Soon after, a seasoned officer known as Andreas Pretorius arrived and took command of the Voortrekker forces. He led 470 men in a party to seek revenge for those that had been murdered. They made contact with the Zulu on the banks of a river. They were surrounded by 20,000 Zulu warriors. Together, they swore an oath and made a prayer, asking God to grant them victory and to grant them mastery over the land of South Africa. In exchange, they promised to build a church and to Christianize all of Southern Africa. The Voortrekkers were victorious. They suffered 0 casualties but killed 5,000 Zulu warriors. 2 new nations were now born, the Voortrekker republics. Shortly after, mines were discovered in the Boer republics, and the English, greedy for that wealth, invaded again. For the first 2 years of the Boer War, the Afrikaners were badly beating the English. In 1902, the British appointed a new general as commander of the British forces, General Kitchener. General Kitchener then rounded up all of the Boer women and children and put them in camps, the world's first concentration camps. Over 46,000 Boer women, children, and elderly died in these camps. That is over half of the female population of the Boer republics and 1/3 of the children. This was so devastating a tactic that the Boers surrendered. The British then incorporated the Boer republics into a union of South Africa. In 1920, they began bringing black Africans into the Boer republics areas to work the mines. At this time, the Union of South Africa was 1/3 white, 1/3 black, and 1/3 all other races. In 1948, the Afrikaner National Party won the elections and instituted apartheid. In 1994, apartheid was ended as the Afrikaners made peace with Nelson Mandela, and Nelson Mandela was elected president. For the next few years, while Nelson Mandela was still alive, things were going good and reconciliation seemed possible. After the death of Nelson Mandela, a number of South African politicians began basically calling for blood, and South Africa's government began passing hundreds of anti-white racial laws. Along with these racial laws, a number of farm attacks began. The farm attacks are ongoing. a lot of South Africans is a bill that was recently passed by the government known as appropriation without compensation. The government can seize any form of wealth held by whites, not just farmland. This includes your car, your watch, your wallet, even your bank account. It can all be seized at any time with no justification if you're white. White South Africans are real refugees. They're being targeted in racial murders that are simply out of control. They deal with hundreds of anti-white discriminatory laws. The government has decided that it can seize any form of wealth owned by a white person at any time with no explanation. And what's even more concerning is a known and very vicious racially motivated political party known as the EFF is on the verge of winning elections, and they openly have been advocating mass murder of white South Africans. The further issue is that because the Afrikaners are white, the world mocks and ridicules their claims of persecution, despite the evidence for it being overwhelming. The United States and Russia are the only countries that have allowed in Afrikaner refugees. We have to take white South Africans, and we have to put them ahead of all other claimants because no other country in the world will accept them. Ethiopians, Sudanese, they can go to any one of dozens of other friendly, safe third countries. South African whites do not have anywhere else they can go. Thank you. For more historical tidbits and facts, check out my YouTube channel.